Okay, good morning. It's good to see you again. I'm Second Lieutenant Gift Bel INP Sumugaysay. I'll be the one giving you the recap on our subject for today, which is the Unconventional Warfare and Reservist and Retiree Affair Program. I'll be the one to talk about the Unconventional Warfare, and Second Lieutenant Sergeant Reyes, rather, will talk about the Reservist and Retiree Affairs Program. So let us start. So I already know that you already had your asynchronous class regarding this last Wednesday. So we'll just skim this by. I know you already read the definition of terms. In the general classifications, so you already know that we have three: the guerrilla warfare, escape and evasion, and subversion. Also, that the unconventional warfare can be used either strategic or tactical in its nature, and is normally under a unified command where the purpose is to assist and support conventional military effort. In the conduct of the operation, organizations and the people who conduct unconventional warfare have to be trained and equipped to operate against hostile forces inside their zone, the hostile zone, and the that those who are part of this unconventional warfare must be closely coordinate must be coordinated to civilian agencies that have responsibilities in economic, political, and psychological operations. Unconventional warfare are planned and coordinated at national level. So this type of operations are not just battalion plans or brigade plans or just for the army. It deals with the national level. This includes the commander in chief, the president, most likely also the secretary of national defense and the chief of staff and its joint chief of staffs. This is because unconventional warfare is not like the conventional warfare, and also with several government agencies, and that it has to be planned very well, and that the theater commander should be the one to develop, organize, and plan and support the operation. In the related activities, the unconventional warfare operation must be supported by the psychological operation designed to influence the target population, and by civil affair operation designed to reinforce government capabilities. And that the unconventional warfare produce intelligence support conventional troops. So as you can see, since they're the one who is deeper inside enemy lines, they're able to get the whole gist of what's happening, what's the support what's inside their lines, like the status of their enemy tanks, ammunition dump, regarding communications and other stuff. And in support to conventional operations. So commander in the field should ensure that the unconventional warfare operations support conventional military operations. This is true. They should be ensured because the whole purpose of the unconventional warfare is to support conventional military operations. That's a part of their job. Nature The nature of a particular operation in a target area will be influenced by many factors, such as ideological matter and effectiveness of mass media communication. Is particularly useful when application of force is limited or discrete, or when a commitment of a conventional force is not practical. Yes, this can also be used without the conventional troops, or even though the force is not enough or limited to deal with the situation, the unconventional warfare units can be the one to slowly operate and at least disable whatever they can to help with the military effort. or if it needs to be discreet, the operation needs to be discreet, these guys are the one that you should be employing, because they're trained to be inserted to the hostile territories to do with discreet matters, assassinations, or high profile VIP arrest, anything like that, and they can also be the one, they're also trained to extract themselves. So the psychological, political, and economic influence effect of other military operations may have immediate or long-term impact on the unconventional warfare. Close coordination of conventional psychological civil affairs and UW operations is required to obtain the necessary support of the locals. So it's a joint operation if you want it to be very effective. The political consequences of sponsoring guerrilla and other resistance force must be carefully considered. Support of political groups that are unpopular with the local population or incompatible with friendly national interests may be detrimental to a long term. So yes, when it comes to sponsoring guerrilla movements or resistant forces, you have to be very careful who to support, because when you support these guys, anything can happen. Unconventional warfare is a risk. Everyone is affected, especially diplomatic repercussions are always there, and these types of repercussions are can destroy a nation's what you call this, what other countries see uh, about you. So you should really be considering that these sponsored guerrilla and political groups must be strong enough and popular enough to the people that they can be uh, able to if it's about overthrowing a government, they are capable, as long as this UW operations keep supporting them, and it is also to be in the national interest of the party, because you cannot just expel resources, equipments to them, and in the long run they still lose. You're just taking all these diplomatic repercussions, and also losing all the equipments that you lend them, and these equipments are not easy or cheap. They're hard to make and also very costly. And guerrilla forces may develop diverse political objectives, or rivalries among leaders may result from personal ambition. So they can also use the personal ambition of rivalries among leaders for the missions objectives, or you need to be effective in their completion. So guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare comprises combat operations in enemy-controlled or hostile territory by regular predominantly indigenous force of a military or paramilitary nature to achieve limited objectives. So it's only for limited objectives. They already know what to hit and what their objectives are. They're not like conventional troops that have many objectives on the line. Normally, the primary mission of guerrilla forces is to penetrate enemy lines and communications. Yes, these types of soldiers are the ones who can get the enemy communications much better than outside the enemy lines, and conduct attacks against critical enemy installations as prescribed by the commander. So, like I said before, these critical installations are very important to the enemy, and their destruction can mean the enemy's fall. And the commander, which is the commander of the whole joint operation, will be the one to designate which target to attack. Guerrilla warfare is characterized by offensive action carried out by relatively small units with emphasis of mobility, elusiveness, and surprise. So you already know this from movies and maybe reading novels. Yes, when you go for unconventional warfare, you have to be a very small unit because you want to emphasize on the three things: mobility, elusiveness, and surprise. You have to be very mobile to move to one place to another, because remember, you are in enemy lines. You do not have enough mobility if you go with a big force. And second is you have to be elusive. They cannot be able to see you. A big force is a very big target to the enemy. So if you're only a small unit, it'll be very hard for them to pinpoint you or find you. And also surprise. If you want to surprise the enemy, the best way is to be only a small unit so that they won't be able to spot you since you're not that many. Tactical guerrilla operations is closely coordinated with and can support the tactical operation of conventional military. Yes, like I said kanina, it can support the tactical operations of conventional military. In nuclear war, the fluidity of operation, the disruption of communication, and dispersal and mass movement of people would lead to opportunities for the development of guerrilla forces. Guerrilla forces mission: provide maximum assistance in support of advancing ground forces by attacking targets in the enemy rear and decisive times or over a prolonged area. The operation should be coordinated with the overall interdiction program. Mission assigned guerrilla forces must be within their capability. You cannot send any guerrilla forces if they are not capable. Remember, your mission is as critical as uh, as the nation itself is gambling their diplomatic standing and other standings to you, because whatever happens to you, there can be a lot of repercussions. Guerrilla forces may be used to assist airborne and air mobile operations by occupying key terrain such as drop zones, landing zones. Yes, there are uh, examples of this. Example in World War II, before the Normandy invasion, Operation Overlord, they were planning on an airdrop. I think you know. And before the airdrop happened, they already sent pathfinders. These pathfinders are the one who place a beacon so that the pilots will know which are the best place to land to do the paradrop run on these men. And these pathfinders try to secure the drop zones and landing zones. So it's still used today. These guys are able to do that. Guerrilla forces can furnish target information, exploit the effort of nuclear and other fire. Reinforcement of guerrilla forces may be reinforced by fire support, aircraft, and other combat support elements. So we're talking about artillery, air assets, and other combat supports like missiles or etc. Communication. Special forces operating enemy controlled area must be provided with communication equipments, those which are normally non-electronic, such as messenger and visual signs. Okay, to understand this better, our technology today can pick up messages from radios. So whenever these small guerrilla guys or small special forces go inside enemy zones, they always tend to say going dark. Going dark means no communications, nothing until the mission is complete or if they need to call to report a situation. So I know you guys have already seen played Call of Duty. That's what a Captain Price said. Bravo 6 going dark. So no more communications, nothing. Everything is left to messenger or visual signs. So something like that. Halt, circle around, and other stuff. Combat service support considerations. So guerrilla forces make maximum use of supplies. Yes, they only have limited supplies which they can bring because remember, they're only a small unit. So they have to maximize supplies from what they get from civilian sources and those acquired from the enemy areas. Combat support for the guerrilla is usually provided through special forces only. So if you need combat support, uh, the special forces will be the only one to usually provide for them. Because remember, these guys are inside enemy lines, so you need those who are also trained to be the one to give them support. Initial combat support consists of minimum essential supplies and equipment commensurate with the size of the forces and intended for operations. So yes, when you supply them, it's only for what they can for the size of the guerrilla force. So if it's only for 8 men, so the equipments are only or supplies are only for 8 men, and on the intended operation. So it's how long, what kind of operation is it a sabotage? So they will bring enough amount of TNT, C4, anything. Demobilization as friendly conventional forces uncover the area of guerrilla operations. The ability of guerrilla forces to support operations effectively diminishes. The guerrilla units retained beyond their period of usefulness may be a liability. Okay, evasion and escape is a part of unconventional warfare where friendly military personnel and other selected individuals are able to emerge from the enemy held or hostile areas to areas under friendly control. These objectives are to provide allied military forces personnel and other selected individual means to avoid capture, to escape or be removed from any held or hostile territory. So an example of this is example a embassy is attacked. There are rescue forces to grab those VIPs and whatever who the civilians inside that and get out. ENE systems move independently as guerrilla forces, so they're not really combined. They're independent because they have different jobs. As guerrilla forces, they're the offensive. They're the ones doing the attack and disabling critical locations, while the ENE are just there to support rescue operations and to escape. So that it depends on their job descriptions, on their what kind of jobs they have. Provide detailed guidance concerning the principles and techniques of ENE. Subversion. Subversion consists of covert and clandestine action by a resistance group to reduce the military, economic, psychological, political potential of the enemy. It includes such activity as infiltration, espionage, propaganda, sabotage, or terrorism. Employment of subversion. It is used to determine confidence and disrupt social institutions to achieve a desired political objective. It is also designed to exploit such potential vulnerabilities as widespread popular grievance and dissatisfaction, corrupt, oppressive, premature nationalistic ambition of the people or their leader. So there are 7 phases of unconventional operations. These are psychological operations, initial contact, infiltration, organization, build up, combat operation, demobilization, and these are under specifications are just read. You can read at the PDF that was provided to you, and they're all self-explanatory. So I don't need to discuss it with you anymore. So that's it for the unconventional warfare. Any questions regarding this and the retiree and reservist affairs program? I'll be answering your questions in a few slides from now. Okay, I'll see you guys. Thank you for listening. And Sergeant Reyes will be the one to discuss the next discussion.
Good day, cadets. My name is Sergeant Jen Series, and today we will do the recap all about Republic Act 7077, also known as the AFP Reservist Act of 1991. Now, this is an act or demonstration accommodating the administration, organization, training, maintenance, and usage of the Citizen Armed Force of the Philippines, and for different purposes. This may also include civil police officers when needed to maintain the law and order. Article 1, Section 1 stated that this act shall be known as the Citizen Armed Forces or Armed Forces of the Philippines Reservist Act. Article 2, Declaration of Policy. Section 2 stated the regular force. It is a policy of the state to maintain a standing force or regular military force in times of peace consonant to its adequate and actual needs for the security of the state, but which can be rapidly expanded by the well-disciplined citizen armed force in the event of war, invasion, or rebellion. Section 3, the security and socio-economic development of the state. Now, the citizen armed force will be given opportunity to partake in defending the security of the state and in aiding financial turn of events or the socio-economic development. Section 4, the call to personnel, military, and civil service. The citizen armed force shall be so organized, trained, developed, and maintained as to ensure their readiness to immediately respond to the call to service. Section 5, the public awareness. It is stated that the state shall promote and develop public support to an awareness of the important role of the citizen armed force as protector of the people and the state. So the state must create public health to and familiarity with the significant job of citizen armed force as defender of individuals and the state. Section 6. The manpower of the citizen armed force stated that the manpower objective of the citizen armed force shall conform or adjust to projected and actual needs. It is not envisioned or imagined by the state to have a nation under arms unless extremely necessary. Now let's move on to Article 3, which is the mission and organization of the citizen armed force. Section 7, Mission. It is stated that the mission of the Citizen Armed Force or Reserve Force is to provide the base for the expansion of the armed forces of the Philippines in the event of war, invasion, or rebellion. Second, to assist in relief and rescue during disaster or calamities. Third, to assist in socio-economic development. Fourth, to assist in the operation and maintenance of essential government or private utilities in the furtherance of the overall mission. Organization under Section 8 stated the reserve force shall be organized into 5 components, namely the Army Reserve Component, the Air Force Reserve Component, the Navy Reserve Component, the AFP-wide Technical Reserve Component, last, the affiliated reserves. Now here are the logos of different organizations. Armed Forces of the Philippines, Philippine Navy, Philippine Air Force. Section 9, Organization of Reserve Components. The organization of each component of the reserve force and the manpower objective of each component shall be as prescribed by the Secretary of National Defense and approved by the President of the Philippines. The organization, structure, manning, and equipment of reserve units shall conform to the organization of the regular force. Take note, cadets. Reserve units of battalions shall be coordinated on a provincial basis, and hold units of detachment or division type or same on a territorial or regional basis. The organizational structure and manning of the affiliated reserve units shall be recommended by the Secretary of National Defense, and will, however much as could reasonably be expected, adjust to their current association. Affiliated reserves under Section 10 stated, as the President shall approve upon recommendation of the Secretary of National Defense, certain private and government entities, corporations, establishments, and organizations at the national, provincial, and municipal levels which provide essential public services such as water, light, transportation, and communications, which are necessary to support the prosecution of national defense plans or to meet an emergency, shall be organized as affiliated units of the reserve force. Now, these partnered units will be comprised by suitable orders to be given by the Secretary of National Defense. Given unit assignment and doled out to the proper safe segments of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP. The program of authorities and representatives of these subsidiary units will be remembered for the sets of establishing the units. Now, these units will be so used in the midst of war or crisis to guarantee the constant and continuous arrangement of the fundamental administrations that they are delivering. Article 4, Definition of Citizen Soldiers. Now, what are citizen soldiers? As stated here, that composed of reserve force are those reservists of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, who are incorporated into the reserve force. As follow, take note, cadets, graduates of the Reserve Officers Training Corps ROTC basic and advanced courses, graduates of authorized basic military training and instructions, ex-servicemen and retired officers of the AFP and other armed forces that have diplomatic relations with the Philippines, recognized World War II guerrillas who were honorably discharged from the service, commissioned and non-commissioned officers under the affiliated reserves category, and graduates of the National Defense College of the Philippines, or NDCP. Last, commissioned and non-commissioned officers and privates under the existing laws. Moving on, Article 5, Categorization of Citizen Soldiers. Section 12. It is stated that there shall be three categories of citizen soldiers, or AFP reservists. Number 1, the first category reserve. Now, they are composed of able-bodied reservists whose ages are between 18 to 35 years inclusive. 2, second category reserve. They shall be composed of able-bodied reservists whose ages are between 36 to 51 years inclusive. And number 3, the third category reserve. They shall be composed of the able-bodied reservists who are above 51 years of age. Section 13, Classification of Reserve Force Units. Based on the categorization provided in Section 12, the Reserve Force units shall further be classified into number 1, Ready Reserve, number 2, the Standby Reserve, number 3, the Retired Reserve. These are based on the operational readiness for immediate deployment or utilization. Now, the first classification is the Ready Reserve. The Ready Reserve shall be composed of citizen soldiers belonging mostly to the first category reserve and others provided in this Act, who shall be organized, trained, and maintained as mobilized ready reserve subjects to call at any times to augment the regular armed force of the AFP, not only in times of war or national emergency, but also to meet the local emergencies arising from calamities, disasters, and threats to peace, order, security, and stability in any locality, including the need to provide assistance in relief and rescue work and other civil assistance activities. The following citizen soldiers may be exempted from the rendering service with the said reserve units. 1. Active members of the Armed Forces of Philippines and the Philippine National Police. Second, those who are residing abroad but only during the duration of their absence from the Philippines. Third, those who are physically and mentally unfit to serve their tour of duty. Fourth, those who are convicted of crimes involving moral turpitude. And last, those who may be accepted from duty to valid reasons which may be authorized on a case-to-case basis by appropriate and competent authority. For this purpose, the AFP shall such appropriate guidelines, rules, and regulations as may be necessary. The second classification is the standby reserve. Now, the standby reserve shall be composed of citizen soldiers belonging mostly to the second category reserve and the third category reserve. The members of the standby reserve shall be organized and assigned to specified reserve units and shall be maintained through annual assembly tests to update their records and their present addresses, among others. The standby reserve, take note, may be mobilized or ordered to active duty only in times of national emergency or war. Now, the ranks of the members of the standby reserve may be upgraded if they voluntarily participate in training or serve with the ready reserve units in their areas, or if their standby reserve units undergo retraining. They will, however, be encouraged to upgrade their military knowledge and skills by taking up non-resident or resident courses which shall be set up for the purpose. The last classification is the retired reserve. The retired reserve is composed of citizen soldiers who have qualified for retirement through length of service, old age, or disability. 65 years old shall be considered as retirement age. However, if qualified and fit for duty, a member of the retired reserve may be ordered to active duty in times of local or national emergencies if he volunteers for active duty. When the Secretary of National Defense determines that there are not enough qualified citizen soldiers with his special skills and qualifications in the ready reserve or standby reserve in his particular area of residence. Article 6, entitled Manpower Development. Compulsory military registration and training under Section 14. Now, all male citizens between the ages of 18 to 25 years old who are not reservists shall be required to register for military instruction. The registration takes place in suitable registration places to be prescribed by the city or municipal government between the dates of April the 1st or 7th, commencing of 1 year after the effectivity of this act. Biennial registration shall be held during the same period in succeeding years. However, in Section 15, entitled Exemption from Compulsory Military Training, the following are exemption from military training. First, members of the clergy of any religious order or sect, except if they volunteer. Second, those in the active service of the armed forces of the Philippines and the police members of the Philippine National Police. Third, superintendent and uniformed members of the National Penitentiary, corrective instructions, and insane asylums. And licensed air and maritime pilots, navigators, and merchant marine officers. Registering officer under Section 16. As provided in Section 14 for the purpose of registration, the city or municipal treasurers of chartered cities and municipalities are hereby designated as registering officers. The Secretary of National Defense shall prescribe and provide the forms to be used in registration and prescribe the procedures for the conduct and reporting of the results of the registration. However, in Section 17, persons disqualified or exempted from registrations are the following persons who are disqualified are persons who are disqualified by law from employment in government service, Second, those who are physically and mentally unfit as certified by an AFP medical officer. Third, those who are suffering incarceration awaiting trial by a court of law, provided that upon their release from custody they shall without delay register. Section 18. Selection of registrants for compulsory training. The registrants who are to undergo compulsory training are provided or selected in the month of May every year by drawing lots by a board of canvassers. The Secretary of National Defense shall prescribe the procedure for the selection of registrants. Now here are the benefit system of reservists. Allowance and benefits number 1. Military and civil auxiliaries are authorized or entitled to receive the following allowances and benefits but not limited. These are basic subsistence allowance, clothing allowance, hospitalization or medical care for injuries and sickness incurred in line of duty as authorized by existing AFP circular. Burial services. The PAF provide burial expenses to military and civil auxiliaries in the following instances like death while on active duty, death due to injury incurred in line of duty, death after confinement due to wounds and injuries incurred in line of duty. They also provide the Philippine flag, which presented to the designated heirs of the concerned military or civil auxiliary personnel. The third is the insurance coverage. The insurance coverage is through AFP Mutual Benefits Association Incorporated. For Article 9 entitled Maintenance, Training, and Administration of Reserve Force. Section 50 entitled Organization for Maintenance and Administration of the Reserve Force. The major services are responsible for the administration, training, equipage, and maintenance of their respective reserve components subject to the regulation as prescribed by the Secretary of National Defense. In the General Headquarters HQ, AFP, and each major service headquarters, there should be a staff division of the level of the principal coordinating staff which is dedicated to planning and policy formulation for the administration, development, and utilization of their respective reserve force component. The Chief of Staff creates an AFP Reserve Command within 1 year from the effectivity of this act. In the case of major services, there should be separate unit dedicated to implementation of such plans and policies. In staffing the command structure of these units, they shall be given to qualified reserve officers in the active service and integrates.
Okay, this section we will be entertaining questions on both topics that we just had the recap, and we'll start answering the questions now. In what conditions does an allied nation operate unconventional warfare with local insurgencies or resistance to overthrow a government? So remember, you cannot just any allied nation cannot just intervene with uh, civil strife or problems within another nation's country, except if they justify it, like maybe for the leader had some humanitarian uh, uh, problems, like maybe a massacre or something like that, or the people just doesn't want anymore. That's the only way that they can go in, as long as they have the justification. But most of the problems, from my opinion, though, is because of economic reasons. You just can't deal with problems like training local insurgents to or resistance to overthrow the government if you don't get something back. That's the universal rule here. You if you want to expend something like resources or military force or something like that, you have to get your fair share of what you give or more. But that's my opinion, though. It depends on you. So from what I can say about this, it's all because they justify the reasons of humanitarian problems, like they massacred the the people that were resisting the government, or any other reasons regarding human rights, uh, or something that is regarding the lives of the people there. About the reservist and retire affairs, sir, is there any required training hours to be considered a citizen soldier? Does participating in the RTC program make us a citizen soldier? Yes. I'll answer the second question first. Yes, once you graduate your RTC program, you will immediately become a citizen soldier with the rank of private and sometimes corporal, and you will also have a serial number. That's for the basic ROTC program. For the advanced cadet officers ROTC program, they'll be given a new rank, which is sergeant. And for the non-ROTC program, reservists, they will have to first undertake BCMT, or basic civilian military training. From what I remember, it's about 40 hours every Saturday or Sunday. And once you fulfill the criteria for the graduation, then you will become a citizen soldier. And there will be a next type of training after that, which you call SBCMT, but I won't deal with that. I won't tell you all about that, because everyone will just needs to know about the BCMT training. For those retired reserve that are age 16 up but still qualify and fit for duty, what are their specific roles when in active duty? So from what I can see, uh, there are some retired reservists that can still are able to carry loads, especially in humanitarian missions, in local disasters or national disasters. But most of them are activated or to be in active duty for their specific skills. uh, we're talking about skills that neither the reserve command or anyone from the standby ready reserve, or the standby reserve are able to meet. So example, if this specific person was very good in handling administrative or clerical work, he may be deemed more qualified than the others in the ready reserve or the standby reserve. He can be that could be his role in his active duty in response to local or national emergencies. But like I said, if they're still fit and they still want to volunteer, then they can. Okay, so in conventional warfare, we're talking about the usual stuff, uh, battle tactics, showing of force, big armies fighting each other out, juking each other out until one loses. So if we're equating it to what we call the industrial age, is like the armies before were like lined up and just they shoot each other back and forth, back and forth. It's like that. It's the conventional way, what we usually or commonly see of how they fight each other. And while in the unconventional side, is what we discussed, it's more on subversion, it's more on guerrilla forces, training insurgents to help with the war effort, and something like that. They're mostly on the small but critical operations. They're like the, let's say, if you if you punch someone, it hurts, right? It's the face. But these guys are like the knife which hits you. You're not only hurt, but you're bleeding. They're the type of warfare that unconventional warfare is on destroying the critical areas or critical places or communication to bleed out the conventional enemy, the conventional forces of the enemy. So if that happens, if they're already bleeding, no food, no supplies, no ammunition, no what you call this, no food, then the conventional forces on the Allied side will be able to overpower the conventional forces of the enemy side. Like I said, you cannot fight on an empty stomach. You also cannot fight without bullets or weapons or gas for your tanks and vehicles. Okay, so if it's just a tiny bit, it can be done by verbal warnings. But if the uh, misbehavior that you have done is already too large, it may penalize you. When you are on active duty status as a reservist, you are under the military law, which the regular forces are also under. And whatever you do, you can be penalized for it under the military law. And also remember that whatever you do, it will cost the men your mission, the failure or the effectiveness of your mission. And yes, you will be much more penalized if that happened. So I suggest not doing anything that might cost the lives of your men or the operation itself. Okay. You might be thinking that only regulars have trainings, but reservists also have a wide array of trainings that he can undergo. Most especially on what you call this on regards to local insurgencies and local calamities. So some examples of this are mountain search and rescue trainings, river search and rescue trainings, sea search and rescue trainings, HADR, civil military operations trainings, and other kinds of trainings. But they're not as extensive or intensive as the regular trainings. They're all trainings on the basics of these uh, uh, subjects, just enough for us to know and to be able to use as reservists.
What would the government do if the citizen armed force don't respond to the call of service in immediate need of manpower? So the answer to this is that in Article 2, Section 4 of the Philippine Constitution, the prime duty of the government is to serve and protect the people. The government may call upon the people to defend the state, and in fulfillment, therefore, all citizens may be required, under conditions provided by law, to render personal, military, and civil service. Article 151 of the Revised Penal Code punishes resistance and unjustified disobedience of lawful orders of person in authority or their agents. The penalty is most likely 1 month and 1 day to 6 months and a fine of 500 pesos. So as you can see, the answer to the question is just provided here. So you can also do your own research. It's in Article 2, Section 4, and Article 151 of the Revised Penal Code. Who first discovered that the use of guerrilla warfare was effective, and how did they discover such? So, the one who discovered, or let's just say the first one who used this or conceptualized it, is someone called Quintus Fabius Maximus. This is a Roman general. His full name is Quintus Fabius Maximus Verrucus, widely regarded as the father of guerrilla warfare, devised the Fabian strategy, which was used to great effect against Hannibal Barca's army. The strategy would further influence guerrilla tactics into the modern era. So from there, from the since the Roman times until now, it is still used by us because it is a great strategy. Uh, in the Philippines, it was Emilio Aguinaldo shifts its tactics to guerrilla warfare in the first fight against the Americans in the province of Pangasinan in 1899. So as you can see, uh, you know, Emilio Aguinaldo didn't have the much manpower nor the weapons. So the best tactic to use against someone who is superior is guerrilla warfare, guerrilla tactics. That's why he used this in the province of Pangasinan in 1899 against the Americans. What will happen if the locals don't cooperate with the guerrilla tactics? If you are referring to the people that you will be training, the insurgents and stuff like that, remember the seven phases. It's already part of that. So if you are supposed to have a cooperation with the insurgency because you already have initial contacts, you already talked about it, it's already part of the mission. But if you are referring to when the unit, the guerrilla unit is already there and they happen to come across the locals and they don't cooperate with them, by example, when the guerrilla forces ask for food or intelligence, well, that is something that is up to the leader or the commander of that guerrilla force. I don't want to delve into the details because anything can happen. It depends on the situation that uh, they are in. If their situation is very dire, anything could happen. It may be positive or maybe negative. And if I delve into it, uh, it might be a very bad topic to open up to you guys since you are still not on the stage where you can really understand these kinds of stuff. So, like I said, if the guerrilla unit is within a locality and the locality doesn't cooperate, uh, anything can anything can happen. It is the leader of the guerrilla units that will decide on what will happen if they want to be peaceful or not. What if there is a shortage of benefit and allowances that is to be received by military and civil auxiliaries? So the benefits and allowances are already part of the budget, which are discussed in the Congress. The total overall budget of the Philippines for that whole year, and since and the budget for these allowances and benefits are under the Department of National Defense, where our military is part of. So this budget is already budgeted, talked about by those in charge of this. So there can be no shortage of benefits and allowance, and that the benefits received by the military personnel shall not also be diminished or diminuted, for it has been declared under Republic Act 6948. The benefits received by the military serviceman is protected by law. So those are the questions that I have received and selected together with the uh, rest of the GMAs and the instructors. So if there are any more questions or clarifications, please convey it to the cadet officer in charge of your platoon or company, and they will be the one to convey us to us, and we will answer as best and as fast as we can to your questions. So thank you for listening. And I am Second Lieutenant Gifbel IMP Sumagaysay, your instructor for RTC this year, and Sergeant Reyes, who will discuss to you the retiree and the reservist affairs program. Thank you for listening to us, and we'll see you in the next video.